Again, you can ask all these questions, but there's a lot of assumptions here about how things work that aren't entirely. I guess that's what the point of the interview is.
Yes.
So there we go.
Some things
No problem.
left quite unclear, or at least from the point of view.
No, it's okay. Like I understand. I think there continues to be great misunderstanding about acceptance rate because it's. I mean, I can try to explain. I don't know how articulate I'll be, but I can try to give some explanation.
So we can begin with the actual first question. What are the reasons for former President Ensign's exit?
Mm-hmm. Well, President Ensign, as you know, the note to the community stated in August, with a heavy heart, but for personal reasons, President Ensign stepped away from the position, and so then we've had a transition since then to my own leadership as the interim president, and I think a shared leadership with a lot of the other colleagues from the leadership team in the administration, the continued shared governance with the faculty, and the continued support of a lot of outstanding staff members at AUBG. So a transition is ultimately about everybody and about a community of people, but that's what we're focused on now. I mean, it's understandable to ask the questions of why, but what we're focused on at this point is how we move forward.
All right, so should students be concerned about the AUBG's high acceptance rate, and how many people are planned to be admitted for fall 26? Okay,
so there's a question about and an assumption about an acceptance rate that is high. We can talk about that. Then there's a question about the overall targets for the incoming class, right? Yeah. Okay, good. Let's start with the acceptance rate, and then we can come to the sort of strategic goals for incoming class and how to shape it. I think we make assumptions about the acceptance rate that are not entirely correct. And let's start with this, that some of the stats that we can find, in particular the ones that come from the institutional reports that are available, those stats aren't really there to denote or to, they're not created for admissions use. They're created for other uses like the accreditation reports that we do that aren't concerned with that as a measure of quality. So we're not quite getting the accurate measurements if that's what we're taking. So our actual acceptance rate, meaning the number of students that we admit, not enroll, but just admit to AUBG based on their fully completed and eligible applications, is right around 40%, 42, 43%. And it's not nearly as high as I think some assume that it is. So maybe we can back up and I can even try to give a few more details. So there's different statuses, you know, in terms of applications for students. There's the whole number of applications. That includes then applications that got started but never finished. It includes applications that, for example, were completed, but we don't count because they were kind of ineligible to go to AUBG in the first place. Maybe their English scores were never the level where they needed to be, or maybe the GPA was too low. And so one of the interesting things that we run into is that we, especially because we're a small university, we have limited human capacity in admissions, we encourage people who we know wouldn't be accepted, like wouldn't meet one of the structural standards. We just encourage them not to complete the application, so we don't count it then typically. If we counted all of the applications in whatever state they are and then did the acceptance rate, it would be 10%. So it all depends, like with a lot of stats, right, on in what context you place them. So we can brag about how we've got a 10% acceptance rate. I think we can take what is a very reasonable state, which is when we get all of the ones that are completed, then we accept a little over 40%. And that's been the case for the last 2 years. Then when it comes to the number of students that actually enroll at AUBG from those that we accept, that's about 40% or so as well. But I mean, for whatever, I think it's a great benefit. I think it's a point of pride, but you know, we're not trying to cook our stats for him. You know, I think we want to be straightforward. We don't have to count every single application that ever got started and never got finished. So I think there are because I think inherent in the question from students, which I can understand, is a wish to say, are we sure we're delivering a quality education? Is this a quality effort? And for that, not only is there an acceptance rate that we can talk about, but that's, again, these are stats. They fluctuate. There's a context. In what context are we using them? But I'd look at other pretty crucial markers in admissions of quality, and some of those would come from things like demand, right? We have a waiting list now for the last couple of years, which is impressive for a small institution like ours. I think that's great. The incoming class had an average GPA of 3.7. So again, we're proud of that. We think that says a great deal about the incoming class and who they are. There was very high English proficiency scores now on average, and we can be proud of that. Some of that may just be that young people really speak good English at this point, but we're proud of that too. So there were 980 identified and approved applicants, and that was done by an admissions committee. So this is the other thing maybe to keep in mind about how we safeguard quality, is that these aren't just automatic situations. Like, we have an admissions committee, and our admissions counselors do an enormous amount of work, and we interview every student. You would have been interviewed, and the reality is just very few institutions do that anymore. Very few institutions take the time or the effort to actually meet the people that they're going to potentially accept and then hopefully enroll. So anyway, I hope that it's probably a great deal of detail there that you wanted, maybe more than you wanted, but I hope it helps everybody understand though what we mean when we ask about acceptance rate.
It does. So in that sense, does the 5-year strategic plan include the increasing percentage of foreign students? Because from the statistics that the university itself provides, the number is not dropping, very sharply, but the percentage is lower than it was, for example, 5 years ago.
It is definitely lower than it's been 5 years ago, and it's something that we have a great deal of concern about. I mean, being an international space, whether that's, regardless of what the percentage is, that's really important to AUBG. That's a crucial part of what we believe to be the DNA of the institution, what we believe to be a crucial characteristic of the culture that we want, to develop and continue on campus. So, of course, part of that means continuing to realign or adjust the percentages of international students so that they're slightly higher than they are now. So, straightforward answer, yes. It's definitely part of the strategic plan to continue to improve that. The challenge is how to do that quickly. Because, effectively what I'm saying is it's very difficult to do it quickly. And in fact, if we want to be smart about it, we need to take our time and move carefully, slowly, and with, I know students aren't interested in this, but fiscally, we have to be sustainable about how we go about our recruitment, and we can't all of a sudden turn around and take all resources, place it over here, and then ignore the outstanding Bulgarian market, for example, that's over here. So, it's a typical economic problem, infinite desires and limited resources. So we have to figure out what the good strategy is. So yes, we do want to move forward with recruiting more international students. I think we want to do that in a measured way that makes sense to us. So we'll keep working at that. And again, I'm happy to talk longer about it at a different point, but it's definitely part of what we're trying to do. Again, whether it's about numbers of international students or just awareness of and seeking to create a community of inclusiveness, belonging that has an international mindset regardless of who we are.
Right. On the next question, which was also very popular, is what actions is AUBG taking against sexual harassment on campus?
It seems to be perceived as a concern that people have. That's totally understandable. For anybody to feel like there's a lack of safety should be an immediate concern for anyone, administrator, student, staff, faculty, anybody. I think in terms of actual quantity or number of incidents, I don't want to speak absolutely authoritatively simply because I don't know all things that go on and I don't know what would or wouldn't, unfortunately, get reported. Because what we tend to know as a university is we know if somebody reports something. So we also have to be able to figure out, are things happening that we're not necessarily finding out about in other channels, so that we know how to help and support and protect. But in terms of what we can do, your student government, has set forth a goal this year to work on that a little bit, and so we want to come alongside them, as a kind of collaborator, partner, and help with that, help improve safety on campus. I mean, there are definitely, I think, what in news briefs are probably called isolated cases. I'm a little sarcastic simply because nothing is ever fully isolated. These are all, compound problems that have to do with contexts, but and therefore should be taken seriously, is what I was saying. But yes, there have been a couple of cases of, let's say, non-AUBG people, and in fact, as far as I understand, non-DeWired people that have been on campus and that were causing some concern. I don't think it was anything that was incredibly dangerous, but again, I would take care to say, I'm sitting here comfortably in the main building, and I might have felt differently if I was there in these moments. But I will also say those were handled well in terms of being able for our students were able to find building guards or trusted community members to help them address it, and then where relevant, the police were involved so that these would be taken care of as well. In terms of what the university administration can do, there was immediately, upon hearing more from the student government, there was more safety scans that have been planned, and I believe may have already been started, but we need to ask the student affairs department about that. But they've been organizing some of them, and that involves walking the premises at different times in different places at night. It involves checking and rechecking our resources. It involves double checking our guards, for example, and where we have placed safety on campus and those who would look out for it. We're on very, very good terms relationally with the police, so that's an option that we have, and one that we know will be honored if we need to call in a request to say something's up. So that's not anything to brag about, but I think it's an important thing, though, to say that, look, if something is awry, we know that we can trust to call and that it will be heard. So there's a collaboration there that I think is important. But maybe the other contextual point to talk about when it comes to harassment or safety on campus is we are an open campus, and clearly that is a very deliberate choice as a university to say, our campus does not have walls, fences around it, and we are open to the community, and we would wish to ideally maintain that attitude. The example I would give is of our student center. Like when that student center was built and the money was given for that, it was given together with the wish and the intent for that building and that space to be open to the public, so that it isn't just AUBG's building, it's AUBG as part of the DeWired community. So as we try to think about what it means to have a home here and a safe home, part of it is what it means to have the reality of an open campus, right? So we need to take seriously, therefore, when somebody says, hey, I'm having a problem, or hey, I feel uncomfortable, we need to be able to react quickly to those kinds of things and address it. We need to work well with the people that are in the community. And I think more than anything, we need to communicate well. It's one of the hardest things. So it means between students, it means students and administration, it means administration with community, it means administration within itself to make sure that we have safety measures in place. I don't know if there's interest in the other side of this then, there's many sides, but the other side, which would be, for example, how we actually handle cases of misconduct or sexual harassment or concerns that are on campus. There's an entire panel that's produced that has student, staff, and faculty on it that does address these kinds of concerns when there is a complaint made, and it does seem to function well. And again, for whatever it's worth, I think it's important to note that both the Student Misconduct Committee as well, or Student Conduct Committee, I don't know if it's the Misconduct Committee or not, but that Student Conduct Committee as well as the Sexual Harassment Panel, they both have students that serve on them. And I think that's an important way for us to say we are trying to, not share the responsibility for the situations, but to communicate together with students so that they are aware of, how things are addressed, and it's part of an overall communication package. But maybe one other thing quick to note then in terms of student concerns about some of these areas. I think we get questions sometimes about whether or not we addressed one of these, because people haven't heard, like, well, what did you do about this or that situation that they may have informally heard about? And I would want to reassure anybody that in any situation where there's something formal like this, of course, it is taken to a panel, or to the conduct committee, and we do address them. But for what I hope are clear enough reasons, whether it's GDPR or just the general sort of community sense that these are not the things that we want to be transparent that we address them, but we can't talk about the details of them. So in fact, we do address them, but we don't necessarily publicly speak about it. We can say things like, there was a hearing, and a decision was made. But, I think for the protection of whoever is involved in some of these things, you don't talk about the details of it. So I don't want to anybody to assume incorrectly that nothing gets done. It may also be a situation where we do these things, but we can't always talk about them.
Okay, we're pretty much out of time. So last one, very briefly, 2 or 3 sentences. Sure. What is AUBG's biggest challenge right now, in your own opinion?
I think a couple of the truly crucial next steps for AUBG involve how to become a more, in a sense, mature institution in a very advanced modern world. And I know that sounds like a tagline to a bad magazine or something, but what I mean by that is the following, that in terms of its own, length of existence and its history, AUBG is ultimately a kind of adolescent institution, right? It's still figuring out how to move out of its post-communist roots as an institution that was there, to promote democratic values at a time in which there was a certain context here in the Balkans and in Bulgaria specifically. And Bulgaria is joining the EU. It's getting the euro. There are so many transition points in other places in Southeast Europe as well. And that means that the university too has to sort of continue to evolve and become a place where its core business, the core identity that it holds as a liberal arts university, shines through. But it needs to shine through in a way that then says, okay, this is the future of work. Where people use AI. How do we, as a university, help teach in those contexts? And I think we can continue, and we have to continue to be a place where, just as you all are working, like tough questions are asked, and we academically figure out in an appropriate university setting how to provide answers for those things together, with all the best answers that the students themselves come up with. So, it sounds like a very broad-based answer, but I think really the greatest challenge AUBG faces is to stick to the core business of what it is as a liberal arts university that serves with outstanding academic quality this part of the world.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
In your answers that were
of course
more than
good. I hope it's helpful. You guys don't hesitate to follow up if you have questions or anything, okay?
I think we have